What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's video is an analysis and spoiler review of the newest installment in the Uncharted franchise, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So before we get into my thoughts on the game, I just want to make it crystal clear that this video will contain tons of spoilers. I'm going to go into heavy spoiler territory here, so if you don't want anything about this game spoiled for you, come back after you've played it. If you're still here, let's get into it. Okay, so The Lost Legacy was a game that I didn't always plan on purchasing, despite my near unconditional love for Naughty Dog as a studio. The reason I was a little hesitant at first was because I wasn't overly invested in either Chloe nor Nadine's characters. I enjoyed them when they appeared at various points in the Uncharted franchise, but I wasn't entirely sure that they were interesting enough characters to carry a full installment by themselves. But I was wrong. I was definitely wrong, because these two proved to be amazing characters when given the spotlight and the chance to shine in leading roles. I was also concerned that The Lost Legacy would feel more like a DLC than an actual full-length game, and considering the $40 price tag, I was hesitant to purchase a game that I felt wouldn't net me more than like 4 to 5 hours of total playtime. But I was wrong on that one as well, because The Lost Legacy delivered me a full 8 to 10 hours of awesomeness that did not in any way feel like a DLC. This absolutely felt like a full-length installment in the Uncharted franchise that features two new, albeit previously established characters rather than our typical protagonist Nathan Drake. While The Lost Legacy is sort of co-led by Chloe and Nadine as the two share the spotlight, Chloe is the primary character considering she's the one you actually play as the player. The story starts out with just Chloe as she's navigating her way through India trying to find the location of the legendary tusk of Ganesh. I think the opening hour or so does a really great job of re-establishing Chloe's identity and personality, and on a bigger scale letting us know what kind of adventure we're in for. This is very much an Uncharted game. Everything about this game falls right in line with the other installments in the franchise from a gameplay perspective, a story perspective, a character perspective, a dialogue perspective, you name it. So in other words, if you enjoyed Uncharted 1 through 4, you probably enjoyed or will enjoy Lost Legacy as well, because it's thematically and technically similar in almost every way. There are definitely some differences, but the overarching themes are still there. Just starting from a story perspective, the adventure that Chloe and Nadine go on together is one that purely exists initially as a business transaction. I think part of what made this game so impactful for me was the relationship between the two co-leads that developed over the course of the game. It starts with the two being a little offish towards each other, particularly Nadine, who's been hardened from her experiences working as the leader of the military organization called Shoreline. But the chemistry between the two business partners is undeniable and quickly evolves into something much more than just an alignment of interests. It becomes a friendship that takes shape and naturally evolves as the game progresses. Naughty Dog has always been excellent in the character development department, especially in the Uncharted series, and it's essential that they are because every Uncharted game is an adventure, and the characters need to grow over the course of that adventure to make the final destination feel significant and worth the investment you put in as a gamer. Before I get into how each of these two main characters individually grow, I want to discuss the relationship and how naturally it grew. I think one of the biggest pros The Lost Legacy has going for it is its buddy system and chemistry between the two leads. Although obviously different in a number of ways, it reminded me a bit of the relationship that evolves between Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us. What starts as a business transaction turns into something much more because Chloe and Nadine are more similar than they initially believe. They're both adventurers in search of excitement and profit, and most of their relationships with other people are strictly business and not much else. Well, that's the case with Chloe and Nadine at the beginning of the game, but by the end of the game, their connection extends beyond just what they can bring to the treasure hunting effort. And that's of course a large part of it, but they've also built an admiration for and a trust in one another. These two characters, in my opinion, have been previously established as opportunists, characters that do have a sense of morality and inherent rightness and wrongness, but are ultimately in search of adventure and wealth above all else. Their characters are consistent with that for almost all the game until the very end when they're at a moral crossroads. They can take the tusk, save themselves, and live to treasure hunt another day, or they can risk their lives and save innocent lives in the capital city by defusing Asaf's bomb and foiling his evil plan. The choice that our heroes make here is pivotal, not only because the game needs a climax, but because the characters need to make a decision that will drastically change their perspective and our personal understanding of who they are and what they believe in, because up until this point, they're not heroes and they don't view themselves as such. They're the good guys in this situation, but they haven't performed any selfless acts. However, they do make a selfless decision in the most crucial moment in the entire story when the most lives are at risk. This decision really comes down to Chloe here. Chloe is the one who convinces Nadine and Sam Sam to join her in putting a stop to Asab and his plan to blow up the capital city and start a revolution. Chloe makes a gut decision here to finally stop running from danger and instead face the injustices she's confronted with instead of turning a blind eye to it all. There's a clip I want to play for you here from Uncharted 2 where Chloe tells Nathan Drake something very interesting.
You and me together.
I'm not leaving them behind.
You don't always have to play the bloody hero, you know?
That quote is drastically different from the decision that Chloe makes at the end of Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, where she decides to play the hero. She is prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice to save innocent lives when she could simply ride away with the tusk unscathed. She plays the hero here because she knows that she could potentially stop Asab, and it's wrong to simply flee while innocent people die. I think part of this decision comes all the way back to the conversation that Chloe and Nadine have when they're discussing Chloe's father and how he died in search of the tusk. Chloe is motivated by finishing what her father started, but it becomes bigger than that. It becomes a search for her purpose to be more than just a selfish treasure hunter, to do something that helps her quench her thirst for adventure, but also that allows her to feel that she did something inherently good. Nadine, on the other hand, goes through a transformation as well, but for different reasons. The first time we were introduced to her was back in Uncharted 4, where she was on the opposite side of our protagonist. The Nadine that we saw in Uncharted 4 was very different than the Nadine we see in The Lost Legacy though. My interpretation of those differences is that Nadine is also in search of her own identity and purpose. She eventually decides to put the shoreline stuff on hold, despite the fact that she inherited her father's kingdom, so to speak, and she instead elects to go on a treasure hunting adventure with Chloe. This is an interesting choice for a number of different reasons, but I think the biggest reason being one line of dialogue from Uncharted 4 that relays a very different message. Take a look.
Everyone obsessed with this treasure gets what they deserve.
So what, you're just leaving us here to die?
Oh, I'm just leaving. Whether you die or not, I don't really care.
Nadine, wait.
So long, Rafe.
Nadine!
Now in Lost Legacy, Nadine is by no means obsessed with the treasure, but she is sort of going against that decision she made at the end of Uncharted 4. Regardless, I think Nadine eventually forms a strong connection with Chloe, despite her best efforts not to. She's learned throughout her professional career to never trust treasure hunters, but she does it anyway with Chloe because the two have such an undeniable connection and partnership that Nadine eventually accepts Chloe as more than just her business partner, but as her friend. If there's one thing we know about Nadine, it's that she's a no-nonsense badass that sticks to her word. When she says she's going to do something, she does it, and she's also really big on honesty. I think this is illustrated when Nadine lashes out against Chloe because she didn't disclose to her that Sam Drake was a part of the plan and deal. Which makes sense considering the history between the two, but I think Nadine matures a lot over the course of this game. This adventure was just as important to her development as a character as it was for Chloe's because of the growth that she undergoes. She elects to take a different path than her father, as Chloe elects to take the same path as hers, which is an interesting deviation for the two otherwise connected characters. But just generally, I really enjoyed the banter between the two. I thought Naughty Dog did a really great job writing these conversations that not only feel like they belong within the Uncharted universe in all their wit and charm, but also because they're versatile. There's conversations that are funny, there's tense moments, there's hills and valleys, and this game proves that it's more than capable of delivering well-developed and written characters and conversations. Let's also talk about Sam, since he shows up near the tail end. What I get from his appearance is further proof that Naughty Dog is not done with the Uncharted franchise. As if another installment in The Lost Legacy wasn't enough proof, Sam showing up puts the icing on the cake because there are multiple creative, lively, and fun characters that are still right in the thick of the treasure hunting game with plenty of stories to be told. Sam is a character that I really enjoyed in Uncharted 4 and in Lost Legacy because he feels like he belongs in this universe. He feels similar to Nathan Drake in some ways and different in some others, but ultimately he feels like a character that would also be suited for his own adventure in a separate Uncharted installment as well. I think he's a flawed character, but he still possesses a concept of rightness and wrongness, and that kind of flawed, conflicted character is exactly the kind that Uncharted has succeeded with thus far. There's one more character I want to discuss before we dive into graphics and gameplay, and that's the villain Asab. I liked him overall, but I honestly just wish he could have made a few more appearances because it's very easy to forget about him because he disappears for long stretches of time. I think the character had personality, and he was obviously formidable considering the shows of force that he displays over the course of the game, but I feel like he was used a little too scarcely. He's referenced a lot, but he doesn't appear on screen as much as he probably should. The roughly 3 scenes where our two protagonists run into Asab were some of the most suspenseful, high energy, and tension-filled scenes that The Lost Legacy has to offer, and I think maybe adding 1 to 2 more of those would help add some more immediate confrontation and raise the stakes at various points. Okay, so let's go ahead and transition to into the gameplay and graphics. In terms of graphics, this is 100% a Naughty Dog game. In other words, it's beautifully crafted with exceptional lighting and realistically crafted environments that evolve and change based on your interactions with it. I think Naughty Dog has always done an exceptional job at world building, but I think in Uncharted they're especially creative with the environments because of the treasure hunting foundation. Uncharted are treasure hunting adventure games, and The Lost Legacy makes you feel like you're on an amazingly epic adventure by having you traverse your way through large ancient artifacts and beautiful landscapes. The Lost Legacy certainly succeeds where other Uncharted games have succeeded as well, and that's in the epic feel and look of everything that you do and interact with. I also love the combat system in Uncharted games, and The Lost Legacy absolutely feels similar in almost every way to the combat in Uncharted 4. It feels very smooth, besides the fact that sometimes taking cover and then exiting cover can occasionally tend to feel a bit awkward. Maybe that's just me, but sometimes I'll definitely struggle in this department and get myself into trouble. I love the way the guns feel and operate. I love basically everything about the combat system itself and how fluid the gameplay feels. I actually want to try the Uncharted multiplayer because I think swinging around and shooting people and climbing obstacles and such would be fun against other users. Naughty Dog's linear story-driven games actually make for awesome online gameplay experiences because they realize that the game actually has to be fun. It's a game, and games have to be fun or no one's going to play them, no matter how good the story is. But speaking of fun, let me just vent about something real quick. Uncharted is about treasure hunting and exploring ancient ruins and such, but man do I hate the puzzles. I get their purpose and I understand why they kind of need them for this type of game, but man do I hate them. And I think Lost Legacy certainly has a puzzle problem. Not that they aren't creative, they are creative and well designed, but man, they're just such a pain in the ass. The problem to me is that they have an insanely negative impact on the fun factor. Some of them totally make sense for the story, but I think there's a tendency at Naughty Dog to overdo it here in The Lost Legacy. I felt like I was spending way too much time trying to solve the puzzles and not enough time doing the actual fun things like exploring and getting into exciting battles. The puzzles are not fun to me because they're incredibly frustrating, and more often than not, I just say fuck it and look up a video showing me how to do it because I just want to move on. The puzzles to me are roadblocks to fun, and that's something I've always disliked about the Uncharted games. I also feel like the puzzles oftentimes ruin the flow of the game. Right when you're in the thick of an exploration effort and you run into some of Asav's men, you'll be hit with a puzzle that may take you 10 minutes to solve before you can get back to the fun stuff. I think this greatly ruins the pace and flow of the game and decreases the fun factor dramatically, which is definitely a problem because if I wanted to test myself mentally, I'd buy a Rubik's Cube. I want to enjoy playing this game, and the excessive puzzles get in the way of that. Before we wrap things up though, I want to say that there are a couple absolutely amazing scenes in this game. The scene in the early stages of the game when you're fleeing Asav and his men on the rooftops is so incredibly fun, and the climax of the game when you're chasing down Asav and his bomb on the train is one of the most thrilling experiences I've ever had with the video game. I was absolutely blown away by how much fun this particular scene in the game is. I mean, this scene is explosive, it's action-packed, the stakes are super high, and the combat is some of the best I've ever played. I love this whole part of the game so much that it single-handedly boosted my already high opinion of it even higher. It's just that good. And the ending itself felt very satisfying. I feel like Naughty Dog always does a great job at closing out their stories, and The Lost Legacy continues its success with characters and a narrative that feels conclusive and emotionally rewarding. I loved it because the journey feels like it fundamentally changed our characters, and of course it was a hell of a lot of fun. But overall, as we wrap things up, I just want to say that The Lost Legacy is a game that's definitely worth the $40 price tag. From graphics to gameplay to story and characters, this is an 8 to 10 hour experience from Naughty Dog that definitely continues the look, feel, and style of the Uncharted franchise. If you're a fan of the other Uncharted games, then I'm very confident that you probably enjoyed or will enjoy The Lost Legacy as well. For me, I'd say it's right there with Uncharted 2 for my second favorite of the series thus far. I'd still give the top spot to Uncharted 4, but I plan on replaying The Lost Legacy again, so we'll see. I'm going to give Uncharted The Lost Legacy a 9 out of 10 and say that this one is a must-buy for fans of the Uncharted series or just anyone with a PS4 that's looking for one hell of a gaming experience, because that's what this game is. Either way though, what did you think of The Lost Legacy? Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below so we can discuss it. Either way, that's all for now. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.